The morning sun painted golden streaks across the tarmac at JFK International Airport as Flight 447 prepared for its journey from New York to San Francisco. Among the 186 passengers boarding the Boeing 737 was Dr. Sarah Chen, a 32-year-old cardiac surgeon heading home after a grueling medical conference. She settled into seat 14C, exhausted from 3 days of presentations and networking, wanting nothing more than to close her eyes and rest during the 5-hour flight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 447 with service to San Francisco. I'm Captain Michael Torres, and alongside my co-pilot, First Officer James Bradley, we'll be taking care of you today. We're expecting smooth skies and an on-time arrival. The voice over the intercom was warm and professional, with just a hint of something else. Nervousness, perhaps? Sarah didn't think much of it as she fastened her seatbelt and pulled out her medical journal, trying to catch up on some reading. 2 rows behind her, Emma Rodriguez, a 28-year-old flight attendant with 3 years of experience, was running through her pre-flight checks. She'd worked hundreds of flights, but something felt different about today. Captain Torres had seemed distracted during the crew briefing, fumbling with something in his pocket and barely making eye contact with anyone. "Emma, everything okay?" asked Derek, the lead flight attendant, noticing her distant expression. "Yeah, just... the captain seems off today. Did you notice?" Derek shrugged. "Mike's a good pilot. Been flying for 15 years. Whatever's on his mind, I'm sure it won't affect the flight." As the plane pushed back from the gate and began its taxi to the runway, passengers settled in for what they assumed would be a routine transcontinental flight. Business travelers opened laptops, families distributed snacks to children, and couples browsed the in-flight entertainment options. It was a perfectly ordinary morning on a perfectly ordinary flight, or so everyone thought. 45 minutes into the flight, at cruising altitude of 35,000 feet somewhere over Pennsylvania, the seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers began moving about the cabin, and the flight attendants started their beverage service. Sarah had dozed off, her journal still open on her lap, when the intercom crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I apologize for the interruption, but I have something very important to share with all of you today." The unusual opening caught everyone's attention. Conversations paused, and passengers looked up from their devices. "You see, 3 years ago on this very same route, I met someone who changed my life forever. She was working as a flight attendant, and from the moment I saw her smile while demonstrating the safety procedures, I knew she was special." Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Sarah's eyes opened, her medical instincts suddenly alert. Something about the captain's voice. It was shaky, emotional, not the steady tone she'd heard earlier. "Emma Rodriguez has been the light of my life ever since that day. She's kind, compassionate, and makes even the longest flights feel too short when she's part of the crew." In the galley, Emma's face flushed crimson. "Oh my God," she whispered to Derek. He can't be..." "Today, with all of you as my witnesses at 35,000 feet, closer to heaven than earth, I want to ask Emma the most important question of my life." The cabin erupted in excited whispers. Passengers were pulling out phones despite the airplane mode requirements, ready to capture what was clearly about to be a viral moment. A teenage girl in row 20 squealed with delight. An elderly couple in first class held hands, remembering their own engagement 50 years prior. "Emma Rodriguez, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" The entire plane fell silent, 186 passengers and 4 crew members holding their collective breath. All eyes turned to Emma, who stood frozen in the middle of the aisle, a coffee pot still in her hand. Her face cycled through emotions: shock, confusion, something that looked almost like panic. Sarah watched the scene unfold with the trained eye of someone used to reading body language in high-stress situations. The flight attendant's pupils were dilated, her breathing rapid and shallow, but it wasn't the expression of a woman overwhelmed with joy. It was something else entirely. "Emma?" Captain Torres's voice came through the speakers again, now tinged with uncertainty. "Could you come to the cockpit door, please?" Emma set down the coffee pot with trembling hands and walked toward the front of the plane. Every passenger she passed offered encouraging smiles, some even applauding. A woman in 5B whispered, "Say yes, honey." But Emma's legs felt like lead, each step heavier than the last. She reached the cockpit door, which was slightly ajar, a violation of protocol that would later be discussed at length in the incident report. Through the gap, she could see Michael's face, hopeful and vulnerable. In his extended hand was a small velvet box. "Emma, I know this is unconventional, but our whole relationship has been 3 years of coordinating schedules, stolen moments between flights, building a life in the margins of our careers. I want more than that. I want forever. Will you marry me?" The plane was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the engines. Emma's eyes welled with tears, but before she could respond, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Inside the cockpit, slumped in the co-pilot's seat, First Officer Bradley was unconscious, his face an alarming shade of gray. "Yes," she said loudly for the benefit of the passengers, while her eyes tried to communicate the real message to Michael. "Yes, I'll marry you, but Michael, James..." Captain Torres, caught up in his romantic moment, followed her gaze and finally noticed his co-pilot's condition. The color drained from his face as the reality of the situation hit him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma's voice came over the intercom, professional despite the circumstances. "We need any medical professionals on board to come to the front of the aircraft immediately." The celebratory atmosphere evaporated instantly. Sarah was already unbuckling her seatbelt, her journal falling to the floor as she rushed forward. Behind her, a pediatric nurse from row 22 and an EMT from row 31 also made their way up the aisle. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, cardiac surgeon," Sarah announced as she reached the cockpit. "What's the situation?" Emma quickly ushered her inside while maintaining a calm exterior for the passengers. "The first officer, he's unconscious. The captain didn't notice because he was..." She trailed off, the absurdity of the situation hitting her. Sarah immediately went into doctor mode, checking Bradley's pulse and pupils. "How long has he been like this?" "I don't know," Michael stammered, the engagement ring still absurdly in his hand. "Maybe 10 minutes? I was focused on..." "God, I'm such an idiot." "Self-recrimination later," Sarah said sharply. "Right now, I need him moved to where I can work. His pulse is thready, breathing shallow. Possible cardiac event or severe allergic reaction." "Emma, what did he eat?" "The crew meal. Fish. But Michael had the same..." "No, I didn't," Michael interrupted. "I was too nervous to eat. James had mine too." Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. "We need to get him out of this seat, Captain. Can you fly alone?" Michael nodded, shoving the ring box into his pocket and refocusing on the controls. "Yes, but FAA regulations require 2 pilots for..." "Regulations be damned! We need to save his life first." Sarah turned to Emma. "Get anyone with medical training. We're moving him to first class where there's more room." As they carefully extracted Bradley from the co-pilot's seat, Sarah noticed his medical alert bracelet. "Shellfish allergy," she read aloud. "The fish might have been cross-contaminated." "The galley," Emma gasped. "We prepared shrimp cocktail for first class using the same prep area." "Anaphylaxis," Sarah confirmed. "We need epinephrine now. Where's the emergency medical kit?" The next 15 minutes were controlled chaos. Sarah directed the medical response like a conductor leading an orchestra. The pediatric nurse, Maria Gonzalez, helped move Bradley to a flat position across 3 first-class seats. The EMT, Tom Washington, retrieved the emergency medical kit and assisted with administering the epinephrine. "His airway is compromised," Sarah announced after the first dose showed minimal improvement. "The swelling is severe. I need to perform an emergency cricothyrotomy." "A what?" Emma asked, her face pale. "An emergency airway through the throat. I need a scalpel. No, the kit won't have one. I need something sharp and sterile." "I have a Swiss Army knife," offered a passenger who'd been watching from nearby. "Not sterile enough. Wait." Sarah remembered something. "First-class meal service. Do you have proper steak knives?" Emma nodded and rushed to get them. Meanwhile, Sarah had Tom maintain Bradley's position while she sterilized her hands with the alcohol from the medical kit. The entire first-class cabin had been cleared, with passengers moved to other areas or standing in the aisles, watching in horrified fascination. "Captain Torres?" Sarah called toward the cockpit. "What's our diversion status?" "Cleveland is 30 minutes out," came the stressed reply. "But with the headwinds, Pittsburgh might be faster." "He doesn't have 30 minutes. I'm proceeding with the procedure." Sarah's hands were steady as she made the incision, years of training overriding the surreal circumstances. The pediatric nurse assisted brilliantly, anticipating Sarah's needs. Within minutes, they had established an emergency airway using the hollow barrel of a pen. Another passenger contribution, and Bradley's color began to improve. "Breathing stabilized," Tom confirmed, monitoring with the limited equipment available. "But his blood pressure is still low." "Second dose of epinephrine," Sarah ordered, "and we need to keep him stable until landing." "Emma, how long to Pittsburgh?" Emma relayed the question to Michael. 22 minutes if we declare medical emergency and get priority landing." "Do it." As the crisis stabilized momentarily, Emma found herself standing in the galley, hands shaking as the adrenaline began to wear off. Derek approached her cautiously. "That was intense, and not just the medical emergency. Michael really proposed." "Yeah." Emma's voice was hollow. "In front of everyone, while his co-pilot was dying. You said yes, though." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "What else could I do? Say no while the plane was watching? Create even more chaos? And then James—" She broke off, covering her face. What neither of them knew was that Sarah could hear their conversation from her position monitoring Bradley. The doctor's expression softened with understanding. "Emma," Sarah called out, "I need you to check something for me. Can you review the galley procedures for the last hour? I need to understand the contamination timeline." It was a manufactured task, but it gave Emma something to focus on. As she went through the logs and meal prep records, her professional composure returned. She was good at her job, excellent even, and in this moment, that competence was what mattered. Meanwhile, in the cockpit, Captain Torres was struggling with more than just solo flying. The weight of his mistake, the complete dereliction of duty that his romantic gesture had caused, was crushing. He'd been so focused on creating the perfect moment that he'd missed his co-pilot's medical emergency. If James died— "Cleveland Center, this is Flight 447, declaring medical emergency," he said into the radio, his voice professional despite his inner turmoil. "Request immediate approach to Pittsburgh International, priority landing, and medical team standing by." "Roger, Flight 447. Turning you heading 270, descend and maintain flight level 250. Emergency services will be waiting." "Can you specify the nature of the medical emergency?" "Severe allergic reaction. Anaphylaxis in the flight deck. First officer incapacitated. Passenger doctor performed emergency cricothyrotomy. Patient stable but critical." "Copy that, 447. You're number 1 for approach. Weather is clear, winds calm. You'll be on the ground in 18 minutes. 18 minutes. Michael had to fly alone for 18 more minutes while the woman he'd just proposed to, in the most inappropriate circumstances imaginable, worked to save lives in the cabin, and his co-pilot fought for his life in first class. As the plane began its descent toward Pittsburgh, Sarah maintained her vigilant watch over Bradley. His vital signs had stabilized, but he wasn't out of danger. The emergency airway was holding, but it was a temporary solution at best. "Maria," she said to the pediatric nurse, "I need you to keep monitoring his pulse. If it drops below 50 or rises above 120, alert me immediately." She then made her way to the cockpit, knocking firmly. "Captain, it's Dr. Chen. I need to speak with you." "Come in." Sarah entered to find Michael white-knuckling the controls, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool cockpit temperature. "James is stable for now," she began. "But I need to know, are you capable of landing this aircraft safely?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I've landed solo in simulators hundreds of times, in real life twice during training. I can do this." That's not what I asked. Are you emotionally and mentally capable right now? Because 186 lives depend on your answer. For a moment, Michael's professional facade cracked. I nearly killed my co-pilot because I was too busy planning a proposal. Emma probably hates me. She only said yes because, stop. Sarah's voice was firm but not unkind. Right now, you're not a man who just proposed. You're not someone who made a mistake. You're Captain Michael Torres and you have one job. Get us on the ground safely. Everything else comes later. Can you do that? Michael took a deep breath, his hands steadying on the yoke. Yes, I can. Good. I'll have Emma come in for the landing checklist. She knows the procedures. All flight attendants have basic cockpit familiarity training, but then she'll help you. And Captain, the proposal was beautiful. The timing was terrible, but the sentiment was beautiful. As Sarah left the cockpit, she found Emma in the galley, having completed her manufactured task and now standing uncertainly. He needs you for the landing checklist, Sarah said quietly. And Emma? Whatever you're feeling about the proposal, put it aside for the next 15 minutes. There'll be time to sort through emotions when we're on the ground. Emma nodded, squaring her shoulders. Is James going to make it? If we land in the next 15 minutes, yes. He's young, strong, and we caught it in time, thanks to you noticing something was wrong. I almost didn't. I was so shocked by the proposal. But you did notice. That's what matters. Emma entered the cockpit and took the co-pilot's seat, careful not to disturb any controls. The view through the windscreen showed Pittsburgh's skyline growing larger, the runway lights already visible in the distance. Landing checklist, Michael said, his voice steady now. Landing gear, Emma read from the card. Down and locked, 3 green lights. Flaps. 30 degrees set. They went through the procedures methodically, professionally, as if this were any other flight. But the weight of the empty space where James should have been sitting hung between them. Emma, Michael said suddenly, breaking protocol. I'm so sorry, this wasn't how... Checklist first, Emma interrupted. Apologies later. In the cabin, Sarah had enlisted several passengers to help prepare for landing. Bradley was secured as safely as possible, with Maria maintaining constant monitoring. The other passengers were informed that they would need to remain seated after landing to allow medical personnel immediate access. Ladies and gentlemen, Emma's voice came over the intercom after she finished the checklist. We'll be landing in Pittsburgh in approximately 5 minutes. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened and seat backs and tray tables are in their upright positions. Medical personnel will be boarding immediately upon arrival, so we ask for your patience and cooperation. Tom, the EMT, looked at Sarah with admiration. You saved his life. That cricothyrotomy, I've never seen one performed outside a hospital. I had good help, Sarah replied, nodding to Maria. And he's not safe yet. The next hour is critical. As the plane descended through 1,000 feet, Michael's voice came over the intercom one more time. Flight attendants, prepare for landing. Emma strapped herself into the jump seat near the cockpit, her engagement ring finger still bare, the proposal hanging unresolved in the air between her and Michael. Derek sat across from her, offering a supportive smile. The landing was textbook perfect. Michael's training and experience overcame his emotional turmoil, and Flight 447 touched down smoothly on runway 28C at Pittsburgh International Airport. As the plane taxied toward the gate, emergency vehicles were already in position, their lights painting the tarmac in reds and blues. The moment the aircraft door opened, paramedics swarmed in. Sarah gave them a rapid, precise report. 32-year-old male, anaphylactic shock from shellfish contamination, emergency cricothyrotomy performed in flight, 2 doses of epinephrine administered. He's been stable for 20 minutes but needs immediate hospital transport. The lead paramedic nodded appreciatively. Nice work, doctor. We'll take it from here. As they transferred Bradley to a proper stretcher, he began to regain consciousness, his eyes fluttering open. The first face he saw was Sarah's. You're going to be fine, she told him. You're on the ground. They're taking you to the hospital. The plane, he croaked through the emergency airway. landed safely. Captain Torres handled it. As Bradley was wheeled away, the passengers began to disembark, but not with the usual rush. Many stopped to shake Sarah's hand or pat Emma's shoulder. The teenage girl who had squealed at the proposal now looked at both women with something approaching awe. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen," she said. "Not the proposal, I mean that too, but how you all just jumped into action." Michael emerged from the cockpit looking haggard. FBI and FAA officials were already waiting to debrief him about the incident. But first, he needed to find Emma. She was in the galley, helping Derek inventory the medical supplies they'd used. When she saw him, she stopped, her expression unreadable. "Emma, not here," she said quietly, glancing at the officials. "You need to go with them. We'll talk later." "But your answer, did you mean it? Or were you just—" "Michael." Her voice was gentle but firm. "James almost died. You have to report to the authorities. There will be investigations, hearings. Right now, that's what matters." He nodded, understanding. As he walked toward the officials, he turned back once. "I love you. Whatever happens, I need you to know that." The timing was horrible, but the feeling is real. Emma watched him go, her eyes filling with tears she'd been holding back for the past hour. 3 weeks later, Sarah was back at her hospital in San Francisco when she received an unexpected call. "Dr. Chen, this is James Bradley. I don't know if you remember me." "The co-pilot whose life I saved at 35,000 feet?" Sarah laughed. "Yes, I remember you. I wanted to thank you properly and to let you know I'm flying again. Cleared by the FAA medical board yesterday." "That's wonderful, James. How's your partner, Captain Torres?" There was a pause. It's been rough. 2-week suspension for the safety violations, even though the landing was perfect. But he and Emma, they're working through it." "They're still together?" "Actually, they're getting married next month. Small ceremony, nothing fancy. Emma says she wants to keep both feet on the ground for that one." He chuckled. "She wanted me to ask you something." "Oh? Would you come to the wedding? She says she can't imagine getting married without the woman who kept her engagement from becoming a tragedy. Plus, she wants someone there who understands why she still said yes, even after everything." Sarah was quiet for a moment, remembering Emma's face in that galley, torn between love and duty, between yes and no. She really said yes, even after all that? She did, but not that day. She made him wait 2 weeks, then asked him properly on the ground over dinner like normal people. Said if he ever tried something that dramatic again, she'd personally throw him out of the plane. Sarah laughed, genuinely delighted. "I'd be honored to attend." A month later, Sarah stood among a small gathering in a garden in Connecticut, watching Emma Rodriguez and Michael Torres exchange vows. The ceremony was simple, intimate, and notably terrestrial. James Bradley stood as best man, a small scar on his throat the only visible reminder of that day. In her vows, Emma said something that struck Sarah deeply. "You asked me to say yes at 35,000 feet, in front of strangers, in the middle of chaos. I said yes to save the moment. But I'm saying yes now, with my feet on the ground, because I choose to save us. Every day, through every flight, every landing, every unexpected turbulence, I choose us." Michael's response was simpler. "I promise to never propose to you again, and to always check on my co-pilot first." The small gathering laughed, but there was weight to the words. They'd all been changed by that day. The day when a romantic gesture nearly became a disaster, when a doctor became a hero, when a flight attendant proved that saying yes could mean so many different things. During the reception, Sarah found herself in conversation with Derek, the lead flight attendant who'd witnessed everything. "You know what the strangest part is?" he said, sipping champagne. "That flight is famous now, not for the proposal, though that video went viral, but for the save. You're the doctor who performed surgery with a steak knife and a pen. Emma's the flight attendant who kept her cool despite being proposed to during an emergency. Michael's the pilot who landed solo after his grand romantic gesture backfired. And James is the co-pilot who survived it all. We all just did our jobs," Sarah said modestly. "No," Emma interjected. joining them with her new wedding ring catching the light. We did more than that. We proved that even when everything goes wrong, when protocols are broken, when emergencies strike, when proposals come at the worst possible moment, people can rise to meet the challenge. She turned to Sarah, her expression serious. You asked me once why I still said yes after everything. It's because in that moment, watching Michael realize his mistake, watching you save James, watching everyone come together, I saw who we all really are under pressure. And that's when you know if someone's worth saying yes to. As the evening wore on, Sarah thought about that flight often. She'd been on hundreds of flights before and would be on hundreds more, but none would ever compare to Flight 447, the flight where a proposal at 35,000 feet nearly ended in tragedy, but instead became a testament to human capability, professional duty, and the complex nature of love. The FAA report would later praise the crew's handling of the emergency while critiquing the serious breach of protocol that preceded it. Michael would return to flying with a permanent note in his file and a story he'd spend the rest of his career living down. James would become an advocate for better allergy protocols in airline catering. Emma would continue flying, eventually becoming a chief purser, known for her exceptional calm under pressure. And Sarah? She'd return to her surgical practice with a new story for her colleagues and a standing invitation to one very grounded couple's anniversary dinners, always held firmly at sea level. But perhaps the most lasting impact was on the 186 passengers of Flight 447. Each of them had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a medical emergency or a proposal gone wrong, but the moment when ordinary people faced extraordinary circumstances and chose to act. They'd seen a doctor perform surgery with improvised tools, a flight attendant balance duty with personal crisis, a pilot land alone while processing the worst mistake of his career, and a co-pilot survive against the odds. The teenager who'd squealed at the proposal would go on to become a paramedic, inspired by what she'd witnessed. The elderly couple in first class would tell the story at their 50th anniversary party, reminding their family that love means standing together when things go wrong, not just when they go right. The business travelers would return to their offices with a new perspective on what constituted a real emergency. And somewhere in the archives of aviation history, Flight 447 would be remembered not as the flight where a pilot proposed mid-air, but as the flight where everyone, crew and passengers alike, rose to meet an impossible moment and proved that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear surgical scrubs under civilian clothes. Sometimes they wear flight attendant uniforms. Sometimes they wear pilot's wings, tarnished by mistake but polished by redemption. The proposal at 35,000 feet had indeed been answered with yes. But it was the actions that followed, that yes, the choices made in crisis, the professionals who did their jobs despite personal turmoil, that truly saved the day. It was a reminder that the most important moments in life rarely come when we plan them. That love is proven not in grand gestures but in how we handle their aftermath, and that sometimes the best answer to an unexpected question isn't words at all, it's action. 5 years later, Captain Michael Torres was conducting his pre-flight check for a routine flight from San Francisco to Boston when his new co-pilot introduced himself. Captain Torres, I'm your co-pilot today, First Officer Nathan Woods. I have to say it's an honor to fly with you. Michael raised an eyebrow. Honor might be a strong word. No, sir. I was a passenger on Flight 447 5 years ago, row 23C. I watched everything that happened, the proposal, the emergency, the landing. I was in my second year of college studying accounting. And now you're a pilot? Change my major the next week. That flight showed me what aviation really is. Not just procedures and protocols, but people making impossible decisions under pressure. You made a mistake with the proposal, sure, but you also landed that plane alone and safe. That takes something special. Michael smiled slightly. My wife would say it takes something stupid to propose at 35,000 feet in the first place. How is Mrs. Torres? Good. She's actually the chief purser on this flight. And before you ask, I've learned my lesson about mixing personal and professional announcements. As if on cue, Emma entered the cockpit, her chief purser insignia gleaming. "Pre-flight check complete, Captain. And Nathan, welcome aboard. Just remember, no dramatic gestures on my flights. I run a tight ship," Nathan grinned. "Understood, ma'am." As Emma left, Nathan turned to Michael. "Can I ask you something? Do you regret how you proposed?" Michael was quiet for a moment, running his fingers over the controls. "I regret the timing. I regret not noticing James was in distress. I regret putting everyone at risk. But the proposal itself? No, because it led to everything else. Emma showing her strength, Dr. Chen showing her skill, the passengers coming together. It was the worst and best day of my career. And James Bradley? Flying for Delta now. We exchanged Christmas cards. His include pictures of the kids and a note that always says the same thing. Thanks for the landing, still breathing. Dark humor, but that's pilots for you." As they prepared for takeoff, Michael made his standard announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 892 with service to Boston. This is your captain speaking, and I promise you a smooth, uneventful flight with absolutely no surprises." In the cabin, Emma smiled at the familiar words. She'd heard them on every flight for the past 5 years, Michael's personal promise that he'd learned his lesson. As she began the safety demonstration, she noticed a familiar face in seat 14C. Dr. Sarah Chen, heading to Boston for another medical conference. Their eyes met, and Sarah smiled, giving a small wave. Emma nodded back, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they'd always share. Some people were connected by friendship, others by family, but they were connected by something else entirely, a shared moment of crisis that had revealed the best in all of them. As Flight 892 lifted off, climbing steadily toward its cruising altitude, everything was perfectly routine. No emergencies, no proposals, no drama. Just professionals doing their jobs with the quiet competence that marked the best in aviation. But Emma kept the steak knives extra sharp and the medical kit fully stocked, just in case. Because if 5 years of flying had taught her anything, it was that the most ordinary flights could become extraordinary in a heartbeat. And when they did, what mattered wasn't perfect protocols or romantic gestures. It was people rising to meet the moment, saying yes not just to love, but to life itself, in all its unexpected, terrifying, beautiful complexity. The plane continued its climb into the clear morning sky, carrying 200 souls toward Boston, each with their own stories, their own dreams, their own potential for heroism. And in the cockpit, a captain who'd learned that the most important announcements were the ones you didn't make flew steadily on, his wedding ring catching the sunrise as his hands held steady on the controls. Author's note. This story was inspired by the incredible true accounts of medical emergencies handled by passenger doctors and the unwavering professionalism of flight crews worldwide. While the proposal element adds drama, the real heroes of aviation are those who, every single day, put safety and duty above all else, ensuring that millions of passengers reach their destinations safely. To all the pilots, flight attendants, and medical professionals who have risen to meet emergencies at 35,000 feet, this story is dedicated to you.